theme of promoting peace in the age of compound risk reflects our global reality. The convergence of overlapping risks is compounded by the COVID-19 pandemic. Many risks, including climate change, environmental degradation, misinformation, radicalization, and terrorism, transcend borders, reinforcing and amplifying one another.
One of the things that the pandemic has shown us is that in many ways, in many communities and societies in the world, we're lacking resilience.
Promoting peace in the age of compound risk is crucially important and indispensable from economics. This crisis will not end anywhere unless it is over everywhere.
We have to take a multidisciplinary approach to understanding the issues and a multi-stakeholder approach to addressing them.
Forums like this are extremely important for all of us to come together, have thematic discussions, have technical discussions, but most importantly, have critical discussions.
Risk and threats to peace and development are also escalating online and in cyberspace. That's why we at the Forum want to draw attention to digital technologies. But let us also recall that there are digital solutions.
Social media platforms can be a positive space for people to connect, forge linkages, and mobilize for human rights, accountability, and peace. But platforms can also drive polarization and extremism, be used to incite violence and hate, and erode the integrity of democracy.
What's happened is that everything that we do in the world, whether it's journalism or democracy, is a thinking slow process. But the platforms are designed for a thinking fast process. It's insidiously manipulative of our emotions.
We really need researchers, platforms, experts, and I would also underline media, because online disinformation, manipulation, incitement is really a societal problem.
We need really to rebuild trust. And for that, we need to rebuild the media ecosystem and the social media ecosystem.
I'd say that progress and actionable insights are possible, but we need to develop the bonds and the modes of cooperation that allow us to push those actions further.
Despite decades of activism, of Security Council resolutions, of political footwork, and also hard lessons from the field of conflict resolution and peace building, women around the world are still excluded from the peace processes that affect them.
We firmly believe we've got all the normative documents that we need. We have resolutions, we have statements. What we need is implementation.
I think we have to make sure that we walk the talk. One of the most important things we're doing, we're supporting the development of national action plans.
Our women in most of West Africa have been relegated when before traditionally they were the key peace builders in the communities. I think we would also want to go back to that.
Women should be part of all delegations to peace talks as well as the implementation of peace agreements. A gender perspective needs to be integrated into the agenda of all the negotiation.
Peacebuilding financing is, of course, the crucial nuts and bolts of peacebuilding. COVID-19 has driven new demands, however, for peacebuilding financing. This is happening on two main axes: escalating humanitarian needs in countries already struggling to emerge from conflict, and new prevention challenges in countries that now face risks of fiscal crisis with consequent social unrest and political instability.
The real challenge on peacebuilding finance isn't just one of mutual accountability between those who may want to invest, those who have ideas for the future of their countries and civil society, but there's this broader systemic challenge that we face around securing agreement on what could a global financial model for sustainable funding for peacebuilding look like.
It's not just a matter of finding enough financing, but it's finding the right mix of finance.
Peacebuilding is crucial for an inclusive recovery. So as we know, mobilize for an inclusive recovery, let's make sure that that is a mobilization for peace building.
Famine is back on the agenda. And of course, as always, the famine issue is closely connected to violent conflict.
$5.5 billion is urgently needed to stave off famine in multiple countries. That's not the total financial picture. That's just for the 34 million people out of the 270 million that are marching towards starvation that are already knocking on famine's door.
Increasing famine is not something that is not solvable. It is a solvable challenge. The question is, are we up to it?
We live in a world in which those most powerful countries find it easier to deliver guns to war zones than they do food. And this is systemic failure.
Really bringing together those partnerships to ensure simultaneous investments in system support, both food and social protection systems, reaching those furthest behind.
We need to get better at developing cooperative international solutions to the local, regional conflict problems. And then on the other side of that, we have to get better at addressing the problem of climate change. And with that progress moving forward, then we will be building greater food security and the risk of famine will be much reduced.
We should try to start to invest in the trust a bit more, because I think that's also blocking these kind of projects by the international community. There isn't enough trust.
The double burden of climate change and conflict increases the hardship in extremely vulnerable populations. And this is a humanitarian issue. It is also an issue for thinking about security, and it is an issue for thinking about peace building and peacekeeping.
We need to move the discourse from theory to practice and actually invest in some of the creative and innovative solutions that local actors are already putting forth. So investing in developing countries, investing in local solutions is where we will actually see potential for real impact.
We have a momentum now that we need to seize. There's a greater understanding of the security risks of climate change. There's a renewed American global leadership on climate change that I think we should seize as well. Sometimes dealing with climate issues can also be a way or an entry point into solving, for instance, a conflict between warring parties.
To anticipate and act, to work in a more preventable way, the better it is for people, for the planet, but also for the financial resources that are much, much needed in so many other parts.
All development, all peace building has got to be climate sensitive, or else it is not development and it is not peace building. You just cannot divorce it anymore.
This pandemic has been a massive shock, no doubt. And hopefully it can be the start of something new now and an opportunity to move forward and actually start doing what we have been talking about for a long time and what is really needed to face our common global challenges.
In a place where you can have vaccines and all the tools, you may not be able to control COVID if the community is not engaged, if there is trust deficit from the community.
We are all equal leaders, and we should be having an equal power dynamic between us. And that will only happen when we even start calling ourselves co-leaders instead of a partner.
We need a networked approach if we want to build multilateralism 2.0.
We need metrics for impact. Fundamentally, we need to be seeing what works.
These crises are interconnected and have long-term impacts. Therefore, what we need to do is an overall approach looking how we can support a recovery that can be resilient as well as inclusive.
We cannot be afraid of change or failure. We need to embrace the reality of continual mutual learning as a part of building peace. Therefore, you have to have partnership, and therefore also you have to have leadership, because partnership is about everybody stepping up, and it's about leadership enabling everybody to step up.